Do you know what a tariff is really? And welcome to another episode of Momentum Monday with me, Emily McHugh, here at Supercharged with Emily, the podcast. And tonight's topic is very timely as it pertains to a theme that's being mentioned quite often in the news recently. And I think it would be worth diving a little deeper into it. So, hence, our topic today is going to be all about tariffs and what it is, and pretty much a basic introduction for those who may not be as familiar with the term. But first, I invite you to subscribe at Supercharged Coach here on YouTube, or subscribe on Instagram at Supercharged Club and at Emily the Entrepreneur, as always, to support the channel. And if you find this useful, helpful, please like, comment, and share, and let me know your thoughts as we go into this very keen topic tonight about what is a tariff and why you should care. Why should you care? And hopefully, after we discuss it some, you will have a good reason as to why it's relevant to you and have a little deeper insight on the topic. Okay, so as we go into this topic tonight, and I say tonight because it depends when you're watching, where you're watching from, whatever time of day you might find yourself in, it's still a relevant and timely topic, and also regardless of where you find yourself in the world. So we want to go right into it. It's called my International Trade Series, What is a Tariff and Why You Should Care. But before we delve into it specifically, I want to give you a little bit of background, and you might be wondering, why am I talking about this topic and what is my background relative to this topic? Well, I have you know that I come from a very deep international trade background. I've been an international trade consultant for many, many years, and I've always worked in international trade, international banking, international finance. I've lived in 6 countries. I speak 3 languages, so I have very much a very diverse international background. And so I come to you tonight wearing that hat. You know me as a business coach. Some of you know me as a violinist, but I'm also an international trade professional and have had most significant components of my background has been in international trade. So tonight I'm putting on my international trade hat for you and sharing some deep insights on the topic. Well, tonight is not going to be so much about so deep insights, but it really is an introduction. It's a primer, as I mentioned, for those who are not that familiar with some of the terminology. But I think it's very important that people, when I listen to the news and I see the questions people ask, I'm like, I think there is space in the ether for more insight on this topic. So tonight I'm going to lend my voice to the discussion specifically on tariffs and what they mean and how they actually affect you very much directly, each and every one of us. So with that being said, without any further ado, let's move along into our tariff discussion. So the first thing I want us to think about here is, before we even define a tariff, let's understand what is the infrastructure for a tariff to be even implemented and where it's coming from. Get a little background on the activity taking place. So first of all, it's all about importing goods from overseas domestically. So the first thing is, if something is made in a factory overseas, so it's produced, you can pick your country, then from there it has to be shipped, usually via truck or some form of transport, to a port in that country, so overseas. From that port, the item is then put on a container carrier, which is what is shipped across the world. And these container shipments, it can have hundreds of containers on them depending on the size. And these are and this is what all our merchandise that we get from overseas, this is the majority of the way that it travels around the world, just like this, through these container shipments. And then when it leaves one port in a foreign country, it arrives in a domestic port. And here's an example of the Port of Baltimore. Just so happens to be a photo of the Port of Baltimore, but we have hundreds of ports around the United States, and it can arrive in different ports or around the world, hundreds of ports around the world. And then from there, it goes on another truck. So all those containers are then dispersed and disbanded, and then they go on trucks and distributed through to warehouses. Oops, my little slide. Let's start all over again. Okay, let's fast forward. So they go on the truck, and then they go to a warehouse, and then you see them arriving there at the warehouse, and then the inside of the warehouse stocking the shelves to distribute. And then finally from there you have like your local FedEx or UPS or some kind of local delivery, then we'll deliver it directly to a store. So this is pretty much what the flow of goods around the world tends to look like. And I have you know that at each stage of the game here, there's a price tag. And when it eventually comes to you, the consumer in the store, that's when the final price is paid. So whether it's clothing, shoes, groceries, consumer products, whatever it is that's being imported will be subject or could be subject, not always, but could be subject to some form of tariff. So now with a little bit of that backdrop, let's now get into what is a tariff. Okay, specifically, what is it? So a tariff, let's go into the origins of the word. So it means to notify or announce. It comes from the Arabic word tariff, which meant to notify or announce. And then it went into the Italian tariffa, into the French word tariff, which is what we kind of have today. And the definition is a specific type of fee paid on an imported goods. So it's paid to a domestic country when goods are imported from a foreign country. So here we are in the US. If we're in the US or whatever country you're in, if goods are imported into your country, if goods are being imported to the US, the fee is paid to the United States, the domestic country, from the shipment from the foreign country overseas. But the person who pays the tariff is not the foreign country. It's the importer. The person who is shipping the goods, who's receiving the goods, is the person who pays the tariff usually. And depending, of course, between the exporter and the importer, they decide where the fees are going to go. But usually it's the importer of merchandise into the country that pays for the tariff. All right, so that's very important to understand. And that tariff is paid to the government that you are located in. So if you're in the United States, you're going to pay the tariff to the United States. So me, the importer, if I'm importing goods from overseas, I pay the tariff. Me, American company, pays the tariff to the United States government, and I pay that bill. Okay, just understand. So if China receives a tariff of 145%, China is not paying that bill. You are. Okay, you are. Let that be extremely clear. Now, it does hurt the Chinese manufacturer to be imposed 145% tariff, because what that means is no one will buy the goods. They will be not affordable. So it does definitely hurt the foreign market. But I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, but I just want you to understand who is paying what exactly. And I think that's where a lot of the confusion is. People don't understand who is actually paying the tariffs. But it does have a ripple effect around the world, regardless of who's actually paying. So let's look at other ways, other terms used to define a tariff. So it's usually known also as an import tax, a customs duty, and or some kind of cross-border tax. Okay, so it's different ways it can be viewed. So I want you to think about that just for one moment. Okay, so we wanted that to marinate. So did that marinate? All right, so an import tax or a customs duty paid to the Customs Border Patrol or the Customs Office. And the Customs Office is the government entity that collects duties and taxes of that sort for imported goods, and also or exported goods as well, depending on the country you're in. Again, this is a topic that can get very complicated very quickly, and I want to keep it very basic so that everyone can get the baseline understanding. I don't want it to get too all over the place, because it's very easy for that to happen. But a tariff is a specific type of duty. A duty is a type of tax, and it's usually imposed upon goods that are imported. So, or simply known as a cross-border tax. All right, so that's just pretty much the basic of what it would be considered. Now, let's go a little deeper into what it is. So each country determines its own tariff rate that it will charge to whom and why. So there's many different reasons why someone would charge and impose a tariff. We're going to get into that in a moment, and who they would charge it to and why they would do it. However, it is based on a universal global system called the Harmonized Tariff Schedule, the HTS, also known as the Harmonized Tariff Code, HTC, also known as the Harmonized System, HS. So you normally hear people talk about the HS code. So it's a universal numerical system of product classification, and it helps to determine the tariff rates that an item will have affixed to it. So an HTS code is applied to every single possible product that could be shipped around the world, whether it is a pen, a pencil, a cup, a mouse for your computer, anything, a pair of socks, a straw, whatever item you can think of has a harmonized tariff code attached to it. And I can go on all day about HS codes because it's a very deep subject, but it is the critical code attached to your product that when you're shipping goods, you agree with your shipper what that code is, and because that code, the tariffs are associated with the codes. So not everything necessarily will have the same tariff rate. Maybe the pen is 10%, but the pencil is 5%. Maybe the cup is 20%, but a glass container could be 15%. So it varies based on the materials an item is made of, based on the type of item it is, where it's coming from, where it's going to. All those things have an impact on what the rate is going to be. But the harmonized tariff code is the key number associated with each and every product. That is why it is so critically important to have the correct code applied to your product, because if you don't, you could be paying more than you should depending on what tariff is for that particular HS code. So this is very, 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 very important. If you're going to be shipping anything overseas, this is something extremely, extremely critical for you to understand and be aware of. And so on top of the tariffs that may exist for different types of merchandise, we have other types of taxes, other types of taxes rather, duties, flat rates. It's kind of like an international sales tax of sorts, but not just depending on what the sale item is. It's depending on what the item, not what the sale is per se only, but what the item is, plus the amount of the value of the shipment. So there are many different levels of things that will have an impact on the tariff, but this HS code is the central concept. And so to find out your HS codes, there's a website, government website you can go, again here in the US, https://hts.usitc.gov. It's long. It's a long kind of name. I'll say it again. So it's hts.usitc.gov. And that will give you a little bit of insight onto how to find the HS code for your product. Okay, so what is the purpose of tariffs? What is the purpose? Now we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of how they're used, why they're used. So theoretically, and I put a big emphasis on the word theoretically. All right, theoretically, it's an economic trade tool that protects, okay, entre guillemets, okay, air quotes, that protects local production over imported products. So pretty much it's a kind of a protectionist mechanism, meaning that you want to give preference to items made in your country over the similar items that may be imported, so that your domestic manufacturers can have a more of a competitive advantage. Now, there's certain countries that are very protectionist or known to be very protectionist and historically have pretty high tariff rates as a rule. And so because their whole thought process is we want to protect our local manufacturers first before we import things that could compete with them. A lot of countries in South America are historically known for doing that with some extremely high tariff rates. It makes it kind of hard sometimes to do business in certain countries depending on the products you're selling. And so in the US, it has not been that historically until, of course, right now. Okay, depending on when you're watching this, which would be May 5th, Cinco de Mayo, 2025, all right, 2025. Okay, another thing is, other than an economic trade tool, is that it serves as a deterrent, or supposedly serves as a deterrent against import products by making them more expensive than local counterparts. And so that is the idea that if a product is more expensive to import, you're going to be more likely to buy the domestic product, which of course makes logical sense. Again, theoretically. Now, another reason for using tariffs is that it can help to regulate trade, controlling the flow of trade. Sometimes countries do not want to import more than they export, so they want to regulate that number, the trade balances, to kind of keep it somewhat even. Sometimes it's hard to do that, but a lot of countries are mindful or try to make sure. The goal usually is to have their exports exceed their imports, but sometimes in our current economies, that's usually not so much the case depending on the country. And then finally, the ultimate goal is to generate revenue for the local government, for the local domestic government. So the government to which goods are being imported, it is a source of revenue. It's kind of like passing the toll bridge. You have to pay a toll when you pass travel on a tolled road. So imagine coming into a foreign country, it's a toll at the border. And that's the toll that you're going to pay to have your goods enter the country. And it does generate significant revenue for governments if they are implemented in a certain way. And again, all of these things that I just mentioned are the theoretical reasons. Now, are you ready for the practical reasons of what reality looks like? Tell me if you're ready for what reality looks like, because we're going to now get into reality. Okay? All right. Reality looks like this. So, you've seen the theory. Here's the reality. All right. So, the purpose of tariffs, the theory, and the practicality. In reality is it can serve as an effective economic trade tool to protect local production only if there is local production to protect. May I emphasize that point? Only if there is local production to protect. So if you're not manufacturing a particular item in your country and you charge an exorbitant tariff against that item coming in, but it's not available in your country or not easily available, then you're really penalizing your own people. That's really what you're doing. Because now you're going to have to pay a really high price to get something that you cannot get cheaper domestically. So that's where it can backfire if you do not have the equivalent local production to offset the item that you're tariffing at a very high rate. The next thing is to serve as a deterrent to import products, to making them more expensive than local counterparts. Well, again, if local production is indeed less expensive. Now, sometimes local production can be higher priced. That's one of the reasons why goods are being made overseas in the first place for certain types of items, because of lower costs. And as a result of that, that's why a lot of manufacturers have relocated overseas because of that reason. So if you want to repatriate manufacturing and production, then it has to become less expensive than the import. Otherwise, people will still not buy it. That is such a critical point to understand, and I hope someone will understand this, because this is really essential. It affects large businesses, it affects small businesses. It doesn't matter what size business you are, you will be affected by this. And especially it has an extra impact on a smaller business because it's harder to absorb these types of shocks. So if you have local production that is less expensive than the imported counterpart, then yes, a tariff can be a good deterrent. But if there is no less expensive alternative locally, no, it is not a deterrent. The third point about regulating trade and controlling the flow of trade, it all depends on supply and demand. That's it. The basic law of economics is supply and demand. So if there's a demand for goods, it's going to go to wherever the demand is. Simple as that, whether it's domestic, international, or wherever. And so that's just, what else can I say? And then finally, regarding generating revenue, the only way you're going to generate revenue from tariffs is if the above conditions exist. Number one, you have a local production to protect. Number two, the production is less expensive. And number three, you're meeting the laws of supply and demand. If you can say all of those three, or check most of those boxes off, then indeed your government can more than likely gain revenue. And also, one more point that I want to highlight, if the tariff is affordable, like, can I still pay for that? And I think it still speaks to what I'm saying, that if it's out of bounds within price, then it's not going to even really work, because then people will just not buy the goods. But you want to, when it comes to tariffs, you always want to look at it holistically. You cannot look at it from a one-sided perspective, from one country's point of view, because then you're going to miss the fuller picture and the greater impact. And it is very much a cyclical effect. It will go around and it will affect everyone that is involved with this. Okay, so let me know what you think about this. If this is resonating, if it's clear to you, I'd love to hear your comments on this. Let me know. Like the video, let me know what you think, and share this with someone you think who could really benefit from the topic. Okay, so let's talk about how tariffs affect you. Now we're going to get personal with the tariffs now, because many people have this impression that, oh, tariff affects somebody else. It affects some kind of company somewhere, some kind of country over there, and not me. So now we're going to get very personal about the tariffs. And this is how tariffs affect you. So number one, if you're a business, regardless of your size, you could be a little tiny business or a big old business, it doesn't matter. And if you rely on imports for any of these reasons, number one, inputs for items that you produce domestically. So let's say you're an airplane manufacturer, or let's say you're a car manufacturer, or whatever kind of manufacturer you are, and you need a material that comes from overseas so that you can include it. You're a computer manufacturer and you need to get that rare earth, or you need to get those lithium batteries, or you need to get whatever that comes from another place. That's an input that you need to assemble your product domestically. Those inputs are subject to tariffs. All right, another thing is if you need to complete components of the supply chain, so maybe it's packaging, or again, some other aspect of your production that has a component that's overseas, that item is also potentially subject to tariffs or duties of some sort. If you are a reseller or a wholesaler and you have a store that you need to sell products in your store and you need to stock your shelves, you are very much relying on imports in order to do that. And so the tariffs are directly going to affect you, because you're going to be the one paying those tariffs when they cross the border. And then finally, if you do not have access to items or that are domestically available that you need, and you have to import them, again, tariffs will affect you very much so. And because of the global supply chain being so intertwined, inextricably intertwined for so many years now, it is very difficult to just make everything in one place, like vertical integration, if you have not prepared to do it, if you're not set up to do it, and if you can't afford to do it. You have to have the systems in place in order to do it and the support necessary for it to be realistic. So these are some of the considerations that are very essential, and it doesn't happen overnight. It does take time to set up manufacturing facilities, to regain the know-how how to do these things. So I know many years when I would travel to Asia and go there and visit factories. I didn't mention this in my little mini bio in the beginning, but I would go there. I've been to Asia several times. And I've been to China, I've been to Taiwan, I've been to Korea, I've been to Japan, I've been to a lot of Asian countries, and I've seen enough factories, how they operate and how things are done. And let me tell you, it's not the kind of thing that you can just snap your fingers and overnight have a factory in place. That is not how it works. And so there's so many steps in the process. And it's very important that we appreciate that. And that's why I wanted to come here today and share some of that with you, so that people who are not maybe privy or who have not had the opportunity to see behind the scenes a little bit of international trade, that you will realize how complex it is and how many people are involved for you to get one item on a store shelf. So many steps have to be gone through, so many hands have to touch that product for it to reach you, before it can reach you. And to appreciate what that looks like, and even if it is made domestically, similarly, it's a lot involved for that to happen. Okay, so let's continue with our presentation here. So I explained how tariffs affect you as a business. Now let me explain how it affects you as a consumer. It's pretty straightforward. All costs of the goods you buy are passed on to you. Period. Punto com. Tariffs affect you. That's it. That's all I can say. They are going to affect you because that's what tariffs do. Okay, whether you're a business or a consumer, you will have a direct effect. All costs are passed on. And just to remind you of the slide I showed earlier, where we talked about how the different supply chain, everything along the way is money, money, money. Everybody who touches the product, they are going to collect their pound of flesh. Okay, that's how it works. They're going to collect their pound of flesh. All right, I kind of went backwards. Let me just do it again. Repetition deepens impression. Every touch point along the way, every trucker, every port handler, every container shipper. Why does my slide keep doing that when it doesn't like to go further? Anyway, you get the idea. So money is involved the whole way through. And that's why all of that is passed on to you and me, the consumers, involved in the process. There's no discounting or getting away from it or pretending it doesn't exist or none of that. Okay? There it is. Show me the money, I'm showing it to you. And who's paying it? You. You and me. Period. That's it. Okay. Yes, I'm breaking it down, making it clear. What else can I say? Let's see if it will go forward once and for all. All right. So now I want to show you one more section. Let's see if it wants to. Okay, no, we're going to go back. All right, we're going to go back to here. So that's really part 3, how tariffs affect you. So those are 3 things I wanted to explain to you. What a tariff is, how it's calculated, what does it really mean? You know, what is the purpose of it? Like, what is it? What is a tariff? What is the purpose? And then how does it affect you? And understanding those 3 things allows us to be better versed in understanding what's happening around us in a more concrete way, and not just guessing and so forth. So I look forward to your thoughts on what you think of this topic. If you feel it's been helpful to you, again, let me know. I would love to know if you have any questions as well, because again, it can be very deep. The other layers of understanding what's involved with tariffs and so forth and so forth. But just to let you know, it doesn't have to be so complicated. So with that, I just want to let you know that if you are involved in international trade in your business, or you're working on shipping, or you're working on trying to figure out how to either ship overseas possibly, or either some other strategic issue in your business that you need some assistance with, then I invite you to check out the Supercharged CEO. So just visit emilymchugh.com/join CEO. This is where I provide more customized, personalized coaching in a group coaching session to help you on your particular business needs. So if you have a business strategic question, or you're working on some aspect of your business that you could use extra support, then this is your opportunity to meet with me and ask your question. And for only $47 a month right now, limited access, you have that opportunity. So I definitely invite you to check out the Supercharged CEO and see if it could be beneficial to you and your business as you grow and develop, and as an entrepreneur navigating the spaces of maybe new areas. And also to invite you to consider the Supercharged Club if you're just looking for an opportunity to cultivate your entrepreneurial mindset, and you want to have a community that you can bounce ideas off and so forth. That's what the Supercharged Club is. And when you are, by the way, a part of the CEO, you're also you're also a member of the club. Okay, it goes you join the CEO, you're automatically a member of the Supercharged Club. All right, so that's what I have to share for you this evening. I hope you found this helpful, and I look forward to seeing you next time on Momentum Monday. And let me know if there are other topics or questions that you have, other topics you'd like me to address, things you're really curious about. You're like, oh, I've always wondered about this. I'd love to know more about it. Let me know below, and I'd love to address it for you. See you next time, and stay supercharged. Bye-bye.